Welcome to Hearts and Stripes, your one-stop shop for all things military marriage. I hope our discussions and interviews equip you with the tools to start or grow a beautiful marriage as we address the benefits and challenges of mil marriage. I believe life's most precious moments are worth celebrating, so I'll help you design your marriage blueprint in alignment with your core values. Thank you for joining us, and remember to rate, subscribe, and review. Let's do this. Ladies, lean in because I have some exciting news for you. This episode is brought to you by the Command Collective community. Now, if you haven't been on Instagram with us building and shaping this community, don't worry, you still have the opportunity to be a part. The Command Collective is a 12-month implementation and support experience for military women and spouses ready for community of diverse women who are looking to root one another on as we thrive personally in our marriage and in building a legacy. Listen, this membership is like none other, and you can try it for $1 for the full first month. You get this? Okay, and the reason why, let me tell you why it is so important to be in community is because what I've realized is you don't go as far as your dream, you go as far as your team. So I am inviting you to get a part of this collective team with the Command Collective community. Check it out today at breecarroll.com/community. That's breecarroll.com/community. And we can't wait to welcome you into the Command Collective. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hearts and Stripes podcast. I'm your host, Bree Carroll, and for the Unwrap and Recap series, I have my fabulous co-host, Juvilyn Garcia, who is joining me. Juvilyn, say what's up to the people.
Hello, everyone. I am super excited to be back on this wonderful series, wrapping up the end of the year with all of Bree's wonderful episodes. I am so excited for you guys to be listening in and can't wait to share with you guys this episode.
Yes, and it's the last one. I have really enjoyed looking back at past episodes here at Hearts and Stripes. I hope our listeners are as well. And it's really fun to just talk about these episodes like with someone, a fellow listener, a fellow marriage advocate who really is passionate about seeing marriages thrive and healthy. And this last episode, I was really, I was surprised. I'll be honest. I was surprised to see this be one of the top episodes on Hearts and Stripes podcast. But I think that the topic, let me explain before they come from my life. So in episode 54, we're talking about 2 careers, 1 family. So episode 54, go back and listen to it if you have not, so that you can catch up with the conversation here with me and Juvilyn. But in this episode, the reason why I say I'm surprised is because these are like my friends' friends. Like, you learn in this episode that really we are the reason why they are even married in the first place. So like, I feel like I should open up a like pairing, like marriage dating app service here, because we did good on this one. Like, we did real good on this one. But if you listen to the episode, you'll hear that Nate and Felicia, they are both active duty Air Force officers who actually met at our wedding. We kind of hooked them up. They were resistant at first, but then they saw the vision that we had, and they actually did meet. Felicia finally gave into a date, and look, now they're happily married, 2 little ones and a dog, and live in this dual military life. And I think that is one of the big reasons. 1, because they're amazing people, but 2, because this episode talks about something that I think needs a little more shine and a little more attention, which is the challenges of mil to mil.
The military has made a great change in the amount of effort that they put into keeping couples together. And I would say our curfew in particular we are very close to our Air Force Personnel Center maintenance officers, and they put a lot of time, energy, and effort to thinking about what's the best for not just our career fields, but us as a couple.
That's
And
awesome.
that's an awesome positive change I've seen in the Air Force, because you talk to some older folks, and it definitely was not like that at all.
Right.
The effort wasn't nearly as much. They literally prioritized us on the Rumble Move list above everybody else now. So that is very encouraging to know that they make a lot of strides in helping to keep couples together, but there's still always that possibility that we could be at separate locations, because at the end of the day, the Air Force needs is going to come first for the personnel center. So
Right.
they're going to do their best, absolute best, and I feel very confident in that. So if it does come to that point, I don't think I'll be begrudging, only because I know from past experiences that they work very hard in order to make it work. So
Right. No, I think that's awesome to point out. I do appreciate every branch, specifically Air Force, because we're Air Force, for making that effort to keep families together. I think most of leadership, you will hear them say family first, or that would be within the three top things that they talk about.
right.
Um, and I like to hear stories and experiences of people actually seeing that for themselves. So, Felicia, what advice would you give to dual military couples?
Um, let's see. So we talked about, just communication, right, with our functional, and then also having more real, kind of changing your focus. I know, like, we're to be an officer, or you join the military, and you have your goals. You have what you set out for your career, right? And then you meet someone, and you have to figure out how are we going to merge these careers.
That's good.
Now,
Yeah.
granted, you have some couples who are like, you know what, like, we can see each other when we retire. That is not I can't roll like that. But there might be some people out there that are
Right.
like that. Like, hey, we'll take whatever. For me, I think that it has been really important, like, what to be more realistic about what your expectations are, and do you want, like, is there a location you want? Is there a dream job? And then how do you can't just do that on your own, or make
Right.
a decision in a bubble like that. So I can't just call AFPC and be like, yeah, I really want to go to Germany, but he doesn't want to go. So if you can just send me, you can't, you
Right.
could do that. I don't know if that's good for
Right.
longevity, right?
And I like
So
how you're saying it. It has to be complementary. So, Juvilyn, what were your thoughts on this particular episode? Do you have any friends who are like dual military trying to walk this mill marriage thing out?
I do, and I think well, first of all, I loved how their stories of each other was so different, like how they met.
Yes.
It was very, very entertaining, actually, when I listened to this episode. But I have not a lot, but I do have a couple dual military marriages, and I really just watching them both go through either combat or deployment, or their day to day, and then coming home to that same lifestyle and actually making it work. I commend them in itself, because I don't think I would be able to do it. So I think it's really cool and interesting to kind of just look at that, how they were able to be their own, but then come together to actually make their family work. It actually made me laugh because she's older than her husband, so it was very relatable because I'm older than my husband.
Me too.
So
me too.
it makes me laugh, actually. And like I said in the beginning, it's funny because his way of swooping her up was completely different of her being like, nope, not interested, not interested. And then finally in, and then even seeing you jump in there and be like, well, actually, let me tell you how I saw it. So it's actually all the different perspectives was really entertaining. I really liked this episode.
Yes, it was a lot of fun to like watch it play out. Like, as confusing as it sounded in the episode, that is legitimately how confusing it was in real life. It was just like my husband's calling Nate, talking about, oh yeah, you're gonna meet Felicia. And I'm talking to Felicia like, hey, look out for this guy, Nate. So I think my husband probably is the reason why we should have had him on the episode to explain his side of the story. Because he's probably the reason why Nate thought that the wedding was like their date. And Felicia was just like clueless. Because I just was like, right. I just was like, hey, there's a guy that I think you should meet at the wedding. Like, I kind of left it very open to see what happened, even though I thought that would be a good move. Apparently, my husband must have been like, yeah, Felicia, it's a date. Like, I don't know what happened, but it was hilarious to kind of to watch that. But yeah, I have a lot of respect for those dual military couples because I feel like that is so difficult. And I mean, we assume that because they're both serving that they both get it, but man, that's a different level of being compatible, being complementary. And I love the point that they put out there about they hit on a couple of points that I have noted about talking to their functional together. So like as they get assignments and things, allowing the other person to like communicate for themselves, not allowing people to like say, oh, well, Nate, tell Felicia, or no, like you tell her, like go to the source. Don't use me as a middleman, because that can really cause issues. They talked about managing expectation and creating a career plans that are really complementary and being, cognizant of each other's goals, right? And I think that presents its own challenges because they're both serving.
I agree. And she touches on that. She says, merging careers, your view should be the family being successful instead of just the individual. And I think both being in the military, I think that's really huge, because it's easy to be like, well, he wears the pants in this relationship. Like, no, like orders now depends on both of you guys. It's not just one of you. And will you have this same compatibility going to wherever you guys choose? It's a decision together. And I think what really resonated with me is how she said, being on the same page, mutual respect and understanding. I think being on the same page is really a big thing, because if you're not, you could be wanting one thing while the other isn't wanting that. And I think throwing kids in the mix, that's a thing in itself, because now you're looking at childcare and, well, who's going to watch them because we're both working. Talk about military spouses working and then service members, but having two service members, I think hours, you have to take that into accountability, and just stressors as like deployments. Like, what if we both, there's just a lot that I think goes into it, thinking of just one spouse doing it versus both of them.
Yeah. And I think watching mill-to-mill couples is really encouraging to me. And not to say that we're the same, or the example that I'm giving is the same, but I look at both members have careers. That should be really encouraging to a military spouse that feels like, I have to stay home. Like, if you choose to, that is amazing. Like, do it. But don't feel like you have to, because these mill-to-mill couples are figuring it out. Like, and it's just about what are your goals. And I love how you brought out that point. What does the family being successful look like? And I just encourage you to go back and like we talked about throughout the Unwrap and Recap series, defining what that picture of your family being successful looks like for yourself. What does that look like for you two? And that takes a conversation, right? I know, Juvilyn, you talk all about effective communications in episode 50, the episode that we had you on. Like, what are some tips, if you will, to help couples kind of navigate that conversation of what does it look like for our family to be successful?
So I think I strongly advocate it so much because I truly believe in effective communication. And what that looks like is, for the longest time, and I say this very transparently in my episode, but I used to talk at Martin. I used to full blown talk at him, thinking I'm talking to him. And there's a huge difference. And I say it to a lot of my newer spouses or spouses who just became a military spouse and didn't really know what they were signing up for. But when you are just constantly like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you pick up your laundry? You're not talking with your spouse. You're actually talking at them. And imagine if it was vice versa, what that would look like. You shut down. I used to tell my friends all the time before me and Martin went into therapy about communication. I used to be like, he's not listening, right? And then we'd all get into a spiel about, you're right, my husband doesn't. But no, now I look at it, and when I hear spouses like, my husband doesn't listen, I say, well, how are you communicating with him? Because I think it's so different being like, why didn't you fold the laundry? Why didn't you pull it? Compared to like, babe, was there a reason why you didn't get the laundry done? It's still sitting in the dryer. I think tone is huge. And sometimes I catch myself. I think it's easy to be very stressed out. And I have to catch myself. Even the kids, they'll be like, Mommy, you seem a little bit angry. And I'll be like, you're right. But it's so easy to react and not catch yourself. But I'm so big on accountability. I teach that in my household, but knowing how you're talking to your spouse. And it took me a really long time. I am stubborn as can be, but it took me a really long time until someone from the outside had to like really share with me, like, how are you communicating with Martin? And it made me realize for a good 2 years, I wasn't talking with him. And I think when you actually sit down with your spouse, have a heart-to-heart, for you to listen. I think listening is really important too. A lot of us say we listen in our marriage. I'll be the first to say, at the beginning of my 2 years, I was not listening. I heard what I wanted to hear, and then I reacted. I didn't respond, I reacted. And my reactions weren't always on a positive note. And I say it all the time, but I'm so thankful me and Martin are where we're at today, thriving, and that we were able to overcome it, because he had things to work on too. It wasn't just me. He had things he had to work on too. And him shutting down, his big thing was shutting down. He didn't know how to effectively communicate, and all he knew was to shut down. And I think everyone comes from a past of how they communicate, from your household growing up to even now, but how you portray it can make all the difference. And I think writing down, I'm a very visual person. So writing down how I was talking to him versus how I could be talking to him was very huge. Very, very huge. And I think a lot of us in military marriages, especially, we react and then we put our foot in our mouth because we go, and then you can't really take it back. Where I've learned, we still work on it. Even our marriage is actually really good. I still catch myself. I'm like, ooh, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said it like that. I apologize. I was not in the right state of mind. But what I say, and I think it's okay. I think it's okay now to get mad, react. We're all human beings, but I think it's how you come back to it and take ownership. Like if you messed up, I think that's really hard. I hate it.
Yes.
I hate it. But owning up to it, like if you yelled at your husband and you really were just having an off day, being like, look, like I was having a really bad day. I didn't mean to yell at you like that. What I meant to say was this. And then sometimes they'll react very off-centered, but if you're both working on that communication, he'll respond differently because calmly you came back and talked it through. I think talking it through is a huge step too, because I think we can all have effective communication, but if you're not talking, it goes back to the series with the boat. If you're just patching it up and not actually trying to fix the holes, you're going to sink eventually. And we don't want to sink. We don't want no boats. But I think with all things, communication or in tasks you do in your household, if you have your spouse truly on the same page, it makes all the difference. I think it makes all the difference. It starts with communication. It's the foundation. I feel like one of the biggest foundations in my marriage of why we do so well. It's effective communication. It's strong.
Yeah. And you hit on so many good points there when it comes to effective communication. You talked about taking ownership. You talked about apologizing. You talked about like tone. Ooh, your girl struggles with tone. Let me just say the jersey does come out every now and then. And my husband is like, I am shutting down because I cannot receive when you're speaking from that tone. And it's like, oh, that meant you got to swallow that pill. And then you have to go back and like, okay, honey, I'm going to try to say it in another way. And it's hard. It really does take practice. You're not always going to get it right. But I couldn't agree with you more. Communication truly is a foundational thing when it comes in relationships. And let me hit on thriving, because we talk about that here on Hearts and Stripes podcast, right? And I love how you said communication is the reason why your relationship is thriving. Here at the podcast, we believe in three things. We want you to thrive personally, we want you to thrive in your military marriage, and we want you to create a legacy that thrives. But when we say thrive, it's not like I have reached thrive, ding, ding, ding. That's it. I don't have to do anything else because I hit the thrive level. Like, no, it is a continuous process. You continue to thrive. Like, it is not like a level that you hit and then like, that's it. Because you hit that level, you don't have to keep working on it. It is a conscious effort to continue to love on your spouse, to have effective communication with your spouse, to go on dates with your spouse, to continue to build and grow together, because with each season comes something a little different, right? That might throw you guys a loophole. And now you got to figure out and have the conversation and continue to have hard conversations together as you go through your marriage. And that's what thriving looks like, right? It's being willing to say yes to effective communication, is willing to say yes when your partner wants to go after this goal and you're in the supporter seat. It's willing to say yes when it's your turn to go out there and race in the front and not feel bad because it's like it's your turn. Like, go, like, do it, do the thing. We are supportive and we are here for you. That's what thriving looks like. It's saying yes to those different seasons. And it's not something that you like get the badge and like now you are a couple that thrives. It's a continuous effort. So in case we've never broken that down, you're getting it right here during the Unwrap and Recap series as we talk about episode 54 with 2 careers and 1 family. So Juvilyn, what other thoughts did you have on this episode? Shout out to Nate. He has a book of poetry, and I'll make sure to drop the link, or you can check that out in the show notes of episode 54. So shout out to him for continuing his passion with poetry. I know that's one of the ways that they connected. So shameless tip, if anybody feels poetic out there, go ahead, write some poetry. That's another way to kind of keep your marriage exciting and thriving. And guess what, guys? If you're not a poet, don't worry. We have a whole playlist on Spotify. You can check out Heart Tracks 2 on Spotify, all of the past songs from the episodes. These are typically love songs or songs that are kind of keep the episode topic at the forefront of your mind. Just write down the lyrics of songs that are already written. Like, you don't have to do the hard work of like trying to make up poetry. Just send me some song lyrics, like, honey, shameless plug. Send some song lyrics. It's just as good. Or shout out to Nate for doing his book of poetry.
Well, with this episode, one thing that resonated with me, and I wrote it down just because I wanted to make sure that I addressed it, was I love how she said, the center has always been, I'm committed to you no matter what. And I love that so much. And what that looks like. It's even through the tough times, you guys. I think it's so easy to be like, I'm here for you no matter what. I'll go through it. But I think people forget, and taking it back to the big wedding day, through better and through worse.
Yeah.
Okay. It took me a long time to realize that too. But I think if you can stick it out with your spouse through the hard times, and not just during the wins and the good times, you guys will be solid. I think when you guys, even when me and my husband hit rock bottom, the fact that we can overcome it together, we were still one and trying to push through it all, it made all the difference. And it's something that we look at now about our foundation. It's so solid, and it's because we chose each other. So she said it over and over in her episode, and I'm going to reiterate it. You have to be committed to your spouse. You have to want it no matter what. Like, even through bad times, you should still want to unconditionally love them. And I think through it all, it will be so rewarding. Because I think for us, it's so easy to be on cloud 9 during the good times, but are you still side by side and will wrap your arms around your best friend during the hard times? Because it's during the hard times that you guys will actually see if your marriage can make it through. And I think that took a long time. Like, in the beginning of my marriage, young Juju was like, I'm good on my own, solid, don't need you, we'll be fine. But no, you can't do that, especially I had kids. And I believed, I don't know who said this quote, but I believe when something is broken, we fix it. We don't just quit and find another sink or find another piece. No, we fix what's broken. And it's always been our thing. Sometimes I have to remind my husband, sometimes he has to remind me, because sometimes I shut down over the past few years and I'm like, deuces, I'm out. And I don't mean it. It's something we say in the heat of the moment, but I think there'll be more marriages and less divorces if people would just fix what was wrong instead of calling it quits before they even tried. And I think a lot of my friends who, they're happily right now, but I think in their first marriage, when I asked them, like, well, what did you guys do to try to fix it? 90% of them say nothing. Like, we just let it go. And it makes me sad, right? Because, I come from a happy home. I try to keep my home happy as well, but it's truly because I believe in you fix something before you throw it out. And I just wish more people would understand that. So if you guys can take anything from that episode, I think you got to be committed to your spouse no matter what. And you guys will truly continuously thrive, learn from each other, and go on forward from that.
And see, that is a mic drop moment from Juvilyn Garcia. No, I love that. I really feel like that really is the note that I would love for people to just let that sink in a little bit and just like think about it. I know we are coming up on the new year. 2022 has come so quickly, right? So much has happened. And I really want you to take time and think about, like, do you feel like there are areas in your relationship that are broken? Were there conversations that weren't had? Were there things that maybe you feel like you wish you had another shot at maybe reattacking that situation? It's not too late. Like, let this be a reminder for you to go back and say, I'm sorry. If you didn't say it 10 months ago, it's fine. It's not too late. Go back and fix the things in those areas, maybe in your relationship that are broken. And maybe you feel like your relationship is doing great. Guess what? There is still room for improvement. And you too can find something that maybe you don't call it broken, but it's an area that you can improve upon. We encourage you to take the time, sit as you recap and as we unwrap and recap this episode 54, jot down some notes and some things that you maybe want to go back and try get a do-over. Like, this is the do-over section of the podcast. Like, if you want a do-over, I remember we used to say that as kids, like, can I get a do-over? Like, seriously, yes, this is your past. You can get the do-over. Fix the thing before just throwing it away. And I love how you said that, Juvilyn. So for those, we're gonna make it real fun and real discreet. As you reach out to us after listening to this unwrap and recap episode, as we go over 2 careers, 1 family, if you think of something that you maybe want to go back and fix in your relationship, if something comes to mind or has come to mind as you listen to this episode, when we post on social media about this episode, we like to hang out on Instagram and Facebook. So when we post about this episode, I would love for you to just drop a heart in the comments. And by dropping a heart in the comments, we know that you have thought of something that you want to go back and fix before 2022, or maybe you want to improve upon, or maybe you want to do over. Drop a heart in the comments so we know that you have heard, you have received, and you're going to work on it before you go into 2022. 22. So Juvilyn, before we wrap up this last recap episode, I just have to say how much I am just grateful to have had you as my co-host throughout this series. Let me just brag on Juvilyn a little bit. Not only was she one of the Spouse of the Year recipients, she was also my fantastic guest who was on episode 50 of the podcast. She is a spouse, of course. She is a mom of some amazing little guys, and she is an entrepreneur. We will drop all the links down below with her, but let me rave about her a little more, because most people will know that she was actually our host. They were the ambassador couple for Military Marriage Day. So shout out to Juvilyn and Martin. Hey Martin. Yeah, we didn't show you any love. Hey Martin, what's up? And they were our ambassador couple for Military Marriage Day and did a fantastic job basically kicking off each of the 7 days of celebrating Military Marriage Day as we counted down to Military Marriage Day. So if you want to see the Garcias in action, you can also head to Military Marriage Day Facebook page and you can still see the replays from that celebration and hear their heart for marriage, which is amazing. You have been doing some great things. You are truly a light and really fun to have on your timeline. So if you're not following her, definitely do so, because you offer great date night opportunities. You're really transparent about your relationship. And for someone who is out here fighting the good fight for military marriages, it is awesome to look across and see you doing your thing and really just inspiring and encouraging people to live their best lives in their military marriages.
Oh, thank you so much, Bree. I love working with you. I love how we connected and met. So I always appreciate you. I always love what you're doing as well. I think it's amazing because our platforms really coincide side by side. So I think that's amazing. I'm always a big fan of everything that you do and have loved watching you thrive as well over this past year. So super excited for this series. And I just know there's so much to come in 2022.
Yeah, so everybody out there, we are wishing you, Juvilyn and I, a happy new year. As we have just unwrapped and recapped the top episodes for Hearts and Stripes. I am excited to see what season 3 holds. Should I share a little bit, Juvilyn? What do you think? Should I tell them
Sneak peek.
I'll give you a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm really excited. We're going to take a break. Not really a break. It's probably not a break for y'all. But season 3 is going to kick off with a leadership in marriage series that I am really excited about. And this is one that I really encourage you to get your spouse and listen to, because I will be talking to leadership. And when I say leadership, I mean like the big leadership within each branch of service. And I'm really excited for them to come on and share and be transparent about their own military marriages, and also give that leadership perspective, that encouragement, that insight from their vantage point. Because oftentimes we see things just from our perspective. And it's really great and I'm grateful for them to take the time to come out on this little podcast, Hearts and Stripes, and speak to this service community as our leaders, as the people who drive the vision forward in our armed forces. So I'm really excited for you guys to find out who will be speaking and who will be chatting with during that series. So that's what you have to look forward to in season 3. There's so much more to come, but that's all I can share for now.
So exciting.
Yes. So again, everyone, thank you for joining us on Hearts and Stripes podcast. Stay tuned for season 3. Juvilyn, thank you again for being here. We're linking all the things below so that you can stay connected to her and I as we continue to walk out this journey and share these heart to hearts in our military marriage. Thanks, Juvilyn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember to rate, subscribe, and review. This is Hearts and Stripes. We are the few, the proud, that aim high and are forged by love. Always ready, always there. We are Mill Marriage Strong.